morning. It's Weezy FS1. Skip the BS and put everybody after BS. PS, all I spit is FACTS. The best, skip Bayless, yes, say less. Top for the top, apex, everyday flex. If you ain't got no haters, you ain't poppin', I ain't trying to hate. Let's have a Jordan and LeBron debate. I got time today, dripping on the chain. My diamonds say what they gotta say. If you think it's a game, I commentate, I ain't gotta play. On in the morning, I own my opponent. My competition is not an issue, it's cotton tissue. Unconventional, controversial, convoluted, unconditional, undeterred and undisputed. Good morning.
Good morning, Wayne. And good morning, Keyshawn.
Hey, what up?
And good morning, Rachel Nichols. How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, let's get right to it. Game 5 tonight at Minnesota. T-Wolves favored by 4.5, but Derek Lively has been upgraded to questionable. It's a positive sign. But Keyshawn, kick us off here. Are you sticking with Anthony Edwards and company to get this back to Dallas for Game 6?
100%. Why would I switch from Lil Jordan on to something else? There's no reason to, Skip. I think when you look at...
Now he's little Jordan. He was young Jordan, then he was baby Jordan. Now he's just little Jordan?
Little Jordan, baby Jordan, young Jordan. No, Jordan S, whatever you want to call it. Of course I got him, I got him winning, going back to Dallas for Game 6, Skip. And you know the reason why. It's all about the confidence. It's the confidence in a young man that has shown me this postseason, whenever things have been, back's been against the wall, and he said, hey, we coming out swinging, whether it's to the attendant in the hallway, whether it's to an NFL player, whatever little things he needs to do to motivate his teammates and get them behind him, he's been able to do. I mean, that's what he's shown me. So, going home, as I said before, when the Mavs were up 3-0, and if they were to lose in Dallas and have to go back to Minnesota 3-1, they're going to go back to Dallas at 3-2. Ask me after the Minnesota game if they can win Game 6, and I'll let you know. But you got to think the momentum has shifted to a certain degree for Minnesota versus Dallas, to a certain degree. Dallas is spooked right now, okay? Because you up 3-0, you chilling. Everything is great. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting ready to somewhat rush a guy back, at least saying questionable, because they realize I need rim protection. I need to be able to get them guys. I need to be able to get him to stop them from penetrating in the middle. Rudy Gobert had 10 points, okay? He had 10 boards, I believe, last game, 10 points. He was 4 from 5. All that work in the paint. If Lively was there, they was giving the ball to Rudy Gobert. Like, back down and do your deal. They wouldn't have probably done that if Derek Lively was there.
Probably not.
So when you look at it, Skip and Rachel, you've got to be confident that this young Anthony Edwards understands that he's put himself out there. The moment is big right now. We all watching him. It's almost like Cat's situation a couple games ago when everybody in the NBA circles was saying, hey, man, this dude, he can't hit the side of a bus. But then all of a sudden, in the fourth quarter, he goes nuts. In particular, those 3 threes that all of a sudden separated them from the Mavs. This is where Anthony Edwards is at right now. This is where Anthony Edwards is now. I'll see you in Game 6 with size shoe you want to wear. That tells us, because we focus in on that, Rachel.
We do.
We're looking at that and we saying, okay. So, yeah, I definitely got him going back home, man, with a lot of confidence.
So I got a quick point of order before you go.
No worries.
This is starting to dawn on me that I'm not sure you're seeing young Jordan in Anthony Edwards as much as you're seeing young Keyshawn. Is that possible?
I like that.
I do. I think that. That has dawned upon me.
Yeah.
I thought of this last
give me
night.
The damn ball, right?
It's very interesting that you said that. I got, like, screenshots of people from his press conference or whatever. They done split screen side by side. But, look, man, Jordan...
I'm not even talking about looks. I'm just talking about nature.
Confidence, nature.
Like, yes.
Jordan did it differently.
Yeah.
Kobe did it differently, and I put those two together because Kobe was more like Jordan than Anthony Edwards is like Jordan in terms of his personality. He has a glowing personality, but he's outspoken, and he puts that target on his back, Muhammad Ali-esque, so to speak, you know? And so I'm okay with that, though, Skip.
No, I mean, you're not okay. You love it.
Him of all people would be okay with it.
Until he fails, Rachel.
Right.
Once he fails, now you got to bring it back in a little bit and hit the reset button. But I think he goes in and he has a big game 5 tonight. I think they cover the spread, and yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, so you got them winning handily, convincingly.
Yeah, I do. I honestly do. This Luka on the road, I get it, all that. If you take 35 shots, you better make some. I mean, I get it. I understand it.
And what, by 10, 12, 14?
I think it's an 8-point deal.
Oh, 8-point, okay.
Yeah, I think it's an 8-point deal.
Right.
But it's one of those, we are out front big, and all of a sudden Dallas closed the gap, and then we hit a few shots, and we walk off with an 8-point victory.
Okay.
Well, look, I agree that I think Ant is going to have a lot of confidence tonight, but I don't think confidence is what he was missing earlier in the series. I mean, he walked into game 1 being like, I got Kyrie. I think the biggest change is
but you take that from, Rachel. Kyrie took that.
I get it.
Give me
I'm
that,
just
man.
saying, he walked into that game. You're saying he's going to walk in tonight confident? Guess what? He's walked into game 1 pretty damn confident.
Different, though.
I think that you hit on the big difference with Ant, and it's Derek Lively, right? That is a reason I expect Ant to have a big game. Lively was upgraded to questionable. It's certainly possible he'll play, but here's what I know. On Tuesday night, he was walking into the tunnel, and someone called his name, and he couldn't turn his head. So that's not a great sign. And if I'm the Mavericks, I'm not rushing him back because you still have the overwhelming advantage to win the series. And you need him for the finals. And you don't want him to do any more damage. You don't want him not to be able to move his head in a certain way, and he gets clocked, and then he's in the concussion protocol, which he's escaped so far. So Lively being out, if in fact he is out again tonight, is just a huge advantage for Anthony Edwards. And you saw it in the way he attacked. I mean, he was prepped for that, the way that he attacked in game 4. He was aggressive early. That was a huge thing, was get there early. And then once he got there, he was so forceful about making the shots that he was taking from inside the paint or dishing it out like we saw in the 4th quarter with that amazing Karl-Anthony Towns 3. So I think, yes, Ant could have a really big game tonight, but I would attribute that more to Derek Lively not playing than a change in Ant's confidence, only because I think he's always confident.
He walked in, no question, Rachel and Skip, with confidence. But Kyrie took that. He had to regain that confidence again. Kyrie said, oh, okay, cool, no problem. He humbled him for that game, right? He just took it from him.
For a couple games.
Or a couple games, so to speak. And then it took a minute for him to put his toe in the water to gauge the temperature of what he was getting ready to go up against. And Derek Lively, there's no question about it. It changes a lot in terms of what they're able to do on the offensive end. But at the same time, this dude, he's just different. He's different. I've seen these type of players before. He's different.
Yeah, I agree.
You've seen him in the mirror before. All right.
That may be true, too, though.
All right, so, Rachel, you are suggesting, I think, that Derek Lively probably won't play, and even if he tries, it could be a little shaky,
Look,
right?
I am naturally more cautious on injuries than an NBA player is or an NFL player. I just have seen too many times the Kevin Durant experience that we had in 2019 where you play on a sore whatever it is, and that leads to a bigger injury. You know about compensation injuries, right? So if I was the training staff, if I was the coach, and he couldn't turn his head 2 days ago, I would not play him tonight because you don't have to. You're up still 3-1.
He couldn't turn his head, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of that injury, they're being very tight-lipped about it. They're being circumspect and elusive, and I don't know what it is because there's a big difference between a strained neck in the muscles and if he has some spinal issue that's going on up at the top of his spine, because that's serious business, and he probably wouldn't have been upgraded to questionable if he had that going on.
I agree.
But either way, you have made the point that he might be a little iffy when he's on the court. He might not be sure of himself, and if that's the case, that's going to be a big issue for the Dallas Mavericks.
I'm sure, Skip, and I don't know this 100%, but here's a young man that's probably not had a serious injury to himself since he's been in the NBA?
I would just say this. I spent quite a while after one of the games of the series talking to Derek Lively the other night, and he was one of the most impressive rookies I have ever spoken to. He is so mature. He has his head about him. I think whenever he comes back, I can't say for what he'll be physically, but mentally, I am not worried about him at all. He has dealt with so much harder things than a playoff series, even at this level. His mother died earlier this year. She was sort of the center of his entire life, and his perspective is so great when you talk to him about how he's approaching each game. He feels so lucky to be there in the position he's in, and he says that playing on the court is the time he feels closest to his mom. And I thought that was really interesting in terms of his will and want to. He said, look, I mean, she was shouting at him from the stands for his entire life, right? So he can hear her voice after certain plays. He can hear her when he's at the free throw line. And that's just different than everyday life where you're not facing the exact same situations you grew up with. So I'm not worried about him being cautious.
Mental toughness is going to be important. It's all about being able to gauge and understand what your injury is when you're out there. You know, because when you, like you said, you can't turn your neck, Skip, one day, and then all of a sudden, I got to go from one side of the court to the next, or I got to turn to make a block, and you know, just that little jolt, it doesn't feel good. So unless he's been through that those sort of injuries before, as you know, when guys get injured, they put their toe in the water to get a feel for how am I going to react and respond coming back off this injury, because I've never faced an injury before. So it'd be interesting to see if, in fact, he does play, how he responds to that.
All right. So before the series started, I said Mavericks in 6, and I'm going to stick with that, which would mean the T-Wolves would win tonight, and Dallas, as I think you think, would close it out back home in Game 6.
Yes.
But I don't love that prediction, and I'm going to tell you why. This is starting to feel to me like a must-win tonight for the Dallas Mavericks, because you don't want to create that monster that's starting to be recreated.
3-2. We just beat y'all at home. I'm good. 3-2. I'm going back for Game 6. I beat you in Game 4. I feel good.
I don't think this is 1,000% do or die for the Mavericks. I just don't.
Not 1,000%, but it's starting to feel. I'm not with you, but it's just starting to feel like that, because of the road warrior that is Luka, who has not been a home warrior. And I don't get it, because it's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. It's the flip of what we always see. Most stars play a little better at home. They light up to the home crowd more than to the road crowd. He is just the opposite. If you look at his career in the playoffs, he's 12-12 on the road. That's extraordinary that you're 50% on the road, that you're 500. And this year on the road, he's 6-2. They are. I mean, again, and he's had help from Kyrie, but again, he's the driving force of this thing. So in his 6 road wins this year, he's 50% from the floor, but he's 40% from 3. He's not a great three-point shooter, and he's shooting 40% from 3. If you look at the 12-12, the 24 road games he's played in his career, he's 39% from 3 on the road. That's not what happens at home, because this year at home, they're 5-3, and he shot 28% from 3 at home. Well, you saw him the other night in the fourth quarter. He just wasn't very good from 3.
Busy worried about the refs.
Well, and that's a problem. And it
at
creeps
home.
back in. And
at home. He doesn't do it on the road.
Everywhere. He does it everywhere.
No, but he does it so... He does it so loud at home for what weird reasons, I don't know, but he does it at home a lot.
So, Skip, you're basically saying if it is Celtics-Mavericks in the finals, no one's going to win a home game?
You know what? That's got real potential, because both of them have big home issues. But even Luka at home this year, 5-3, he's 39% from the floor. That's pretty horrible for him. A guy who made the case belonged in the MVP conversation.
Yes, certainly did.
Okay, so I'm starting to think they need to take care of this tonight, because you don't want to have happen to you what happened to Denver that you loved all year, because remember Game 6 up there? After Denver had won 3 in a row, right? Denver had roared back and taken a 3-2 lead, and they went up there for a Game 6 on Friday night. They got run out of the building by 45 points. Well, you don't want that to happen tonight, where they take that momentum back to Dallas, right?
Well, remember, Denver, it's almost like Denver shut it down. It was like, oh, we're going to go to Game 7 after they realized they couldn't catch up and they got run out the building, and they just figured Game 7, we're going to do it at home. My whole point to this is, if this starts to happen to Dallas, don't just assume you're going to Dallas to win the game, because there was a couple things that happened in Dallas for them to even be able to win the games that they won. There was, you know, it was a few things that happened for them to win their games at home.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they just took control and beat up on the Timberwolves to the point where it's like, oh, we got this. No, it came down to the wire.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think that, yes, home and road matters. Those numbers are pretty interesting.
They're scary. Yep.
But the biggest factor in this series to me isn't where they're playing. It's how good are Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns, because that's the other thing we saw in Game 4 that was such a huge change. For the Mavericks to win the first 3 games, Cat was, like, disastrous. I mean, there's no other way to say it. That he was disastrous from shooting, and this is someone who is one of the excellent offensive big men that we've had. So, look, he woke up, so to speak. He did it the right way. He did all the little things in the first half that get you into a game, and then by the second half, he started shooting threes. His teammates showed huge confidence in him. There was a pass from Anthony Edwards late in the game when the Mavericks seemed to be taking over again, like they had the first 3 games, and Ant battles his way to the hoop, could have tried to take a difficult shot, and instead, very clearly, motioned to Karl-Anthony Towns to get to the corner. This is despite Cat's difficult shooting in the previous 3 games, and fed him the ball, and Cat paid it off with a 3. So I do think Karl-Anthony Towns is going to be out of his head the way he was maybe in the first 3 games. I do think
You mean
tonight,
out of his head in a good way?
in a good way, yes.
Yeah.
I think he was in his own head too much in the first 3 games.
Okay.
I think that he heard it, as you said, from the entire NBA. I mean, when you have the set of inside the NBA making fun of you after games and a 48-hour cycle of, well, if you're taking 1,500 shots a day, how many shots a minute? How many hours would that be? I mean, you know, all of this. He did, but I think after all that nitpicking, the fact that he was able to go out and have a good game leads me to believe he will be able to do that again tonight. And frankly, he doesn't even have to be exceptional. Ant needs to be kind of up a level, I think, for the Wolves to have chances here. But I think Cat just needs to be not a disaster. And I don't see a problem
If
with
he
that
does the
happening today.
same thing that he did in Game 4, both of them do the same thing they did in Game 4, they're going to win the game.
Yeah, I agree.
But Cat, Anthony Edwards could do exactly the same thing, but he has to have a running mate. And his only running mate, if you're not going to play Naz Reid the entire time, his only running mate that can knock down shots and score, you know, like no other, is Cat.
Yeah.
A guy who had 70 points this year in the regular season, a guy who scored 50 before, who's a scoring machine.
50 in an All-Star game.
Yeah, 50 in an All-Star game, a scoring machine has to come to the party. Because as great as Anthony Edwards has been as a young player, he doesn't have enough to just carry the team from a scoring output. You need him to go 65 by himself. It's just not what he is.
All right, and yet the last time I saw these 2 teams play at Minnesota, I saw Naz Reid go 7 of 8 from 3.
That's what I'm saying.
But missed the last one, so he went 7 of 9. But it looked like it was online. Luka said he nearly died watching it in the air, right? Because it hit the back of the rim. It was dead on.
If you're not going to play Naz Reid more minutes and give him more shots and slightly push Rudy Gobert aside a little bit, then Karl-Anthony Towns has got to contribute the way he did in Game 4.
All right. X factor for Dallas. The X factor that killed my Oklahoma City Thunder was P.J. Washington. He shot 49% from 3 against the Thunder, and it seemed like every time the ball went to the corner and touched his hands, it swished.
Yep.
And he was 27 of 49 or something like that. It was
So
like
clutch, too, in the
ridiculous.
last 5 minutes of all those games.
Just like, what?
Yeah.
He did it again and again and again, and now he shot 27% from 3 in this series. So he's slumping. Cat appeared to snap out of his slump, funk, whatever it was, and got into his own head in a good way, where he realized, well, I'm still that guy, and I've done this before, and I can do it again.
Yep.
So now you've got all that momentum. All this scares me for Dallas, because Luke is going to have to be extraordinary, and Kyrie is going to have to try to do what he did in Game 1 when he was completely inspired. That was by far his best game of the series, when he took the challenge, right?
Well, I think the defensive change that the Wolves made going into Game 4 was a huge thing, too, and that's going to be a huge factor tonight, is can Jason Kidd figure out how to battle that? Because by switching Anthony Edwards onto Luka, you have someone who's a little more physical, who can handle him physically.
Plus, you got a slow dude going up against a dude, like you said, that can move around.
They can move around. And then you've got Jaden McDaniels on Kyrie, and Kyrie said it after Game 4. He's like, he's very tall. I mean, you know, when you're blocking shots and you can kind of get in a guy's face and be big on him, that makes a difference to a guy who has sort of likes to work the field the way Kyrie does. So I think one X factor tonight is going to be, can they figure out that defensive change? And another X factor tonight for me is Anthony Edwards' stamina, because we saw in the first few games of this series, he's just never played this much basketball before, right? I mean, Team USA coming into the season, then this is the deepest he's been in the playoffs. I'm not saying that, oh my God, it's justified. I'm just saying that he's never played this much, and he seemed to hit a wall. He needed oxygen.
Yeah, but
in Game 2, he needed oxygen.
Yeah, because he was Game 1, he oxygen, whatever. That
Keyshawn never needed oxygen.
I've never taken oxygen.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't even know what it feels like.
Thank you.
So if he can do that, if tonight he can be his Game 4 stamina, then I think that that's a huge factor.
Here's why his Game 4 stamina, in my eyes, estimate is he was guarding Luka. You can rest on one end of the floor to a degree. For him, you going up again, you're not Kyrie going from over there to over here to back to Skip to you, back over there, boo-boo. Yeah. Luka ain't moving like that. Luka moving, you know, so you don't have to push out as much energy to guard Luka as you do Kyrie. You're chasing Kyrie all over the damn floor.
Yeah, but Game 3, he didn't have a tough defensive assignment, and he still looked gassed. So I don't know which one
I think Luka allows him on the other end to get downhill, to use that energy on the offensive end, because Luka just ain't moving around like that. Yeah. So he can save a little bit of that energy.
I got to tell you what I saw. I saw a lot of Kyle Anderson on Luka. And I thought slow-mo versus slow-mo worked, where he could mirror him better.
That might be the case, too. But when Anthony Edwards was on Luka didn't have a great shooting night with Anthony Edwards.
In the first half,
the primary guarding him.
Luka was cooking him in the first half. He did. 3 straight possessions, he just cooked him. So I don't know. I'm not sure, because that's like old school versus new school, where old school knows all the tricks of the trade. You know, I don't know.
So who you going, man? Who you got?
I told you I'm going to stick with my prediction, but I'm starting to think that this needs to get done tonight by Dallas.
So you got Dallas winning it.
I don't love them. No, I got T-Wolves. I mean, I'm sticking with my Mavs
overall,
in 6, but the way it's starting to shape up doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel like it's a cut and dried done deal that Dallas can go home and close them out in 6 games. It just doesn't feel that great to me. And then a Game 7, I'd say, well, I don't think Luka and Kyrie are going to lose a Game 7 to the Minnesota Timberwolves and have that on their legacy, that they were the first team ever to drop 4 in a row. And yet, man, if you got Minnesota back to a Game 7 at home.
You also didn't think Minnesota would go to Denver and win a Game 7 with the MVP.
Yeah.
Right, Rachel?
Yes.
Right, Rachel Nichols?
I still don't know what happened in that second half.
Yeah.
I need to look at the tape 6 more times.
I still don't know how Minnesota won the game with Anthony Edwards going 6 of 24 and 2 of 10.
Everybody else plays, man.
Man, everybody had to play.
Yes,
except
and not everyone played on Denver. But we'll get into that some other time.
Yes, we will.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.